Everyone keeps telling you to be confident. Speak up, take risks, believe in yourself. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Confidence isn't always a strength. In many cases, it's a liability. There's a well-documented cognitive bias in psychology called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it says something pretty shocking. The people with the lowest ability in a skill often rate themselves the highest, not because they're arrogant, but because they literally lack the awareness to see how bad they are. In one of the original studies, participants who scored in the bottom percentile on tests of logic and grammar consistently overestimated their performance by a lot. Participants who scored in the 12th percentile rated their performance at the 62nd percentile, a 50-point gap between reality and self-assessment. Meanwhile, people who actually scored in the 88th percentile, they estimated themselves at the 72nd. The competent underestimate by 16 points. The incompetent overestimate by 50. Think about that. The people who actually know what they're doing hesitate. The ones who don't feel certain. That's not motivation talk. That's data. And it gets worse. Research across industries, from business to medicine, shows that overconfidence is one of the leading causes of poor decision-making. In finance, overconfident investors trade more frequently, but perform worse over time. Studies tracking 66,000 households over 6 years found overconfident investors traded 45% more frequently than others. Their returns lower by 7% annually. The most confident investors performed the worst. In medicine, overconfident doctors are more likely to make diagnostic errors. A meta-analysis of medical decision-making found doctors who rated their diagnostic certainty as very high were wrong 15% of the time. Doctors who expressed uncertainty, wrong only 8% of the time. Confidence doubled the error rate. Even in everyday life, studies show that people who are extremely confident in their beliefs are less likely to update them when presented with new evidence. So let's be honest for a second. Confidence doesn't come from mastery. It often comes from ignorance, because real knowledge introduces doubt. When you truly understand something, you start to see complexity, nuance, edge cases, uncertainty, and suddenly you're not so sure anymore. That's why experts say things like, "It depends," while beginners say, "This is exactly how it works." Now, here's where it becomes dangerous. The world doesn't reward accuracy. It rewards certainty. Studies in social psychology show that people perceive confident speakers as more competent, even when they're wrong. In experiments, participants were more likely to trust answers delivered with confidence, regardless of whether those answers were correct. So you end up in a weird situation. The people most likely to be believed aren't the most knowledgeable. They're the most confident. That's how misinformation spreads. That's how bad leaders rise. That's how people follow ideas that don't actually work. Because confidence is persuasive. Your brain is wired to interpret certainty as competence. It's a shortcut. And like most shortcuts, it can lead you in the wrong direction. And there's an entire industry built on this shortcut. A $13 billion self-help market, confidence coaching, leadership seminars, believe in yourself courses, all selling you the idea that confidence comes first and competence follows. But the research shows it backwards. Competence creates confidence, not the other way around. The industry doesn't want you to know that because building competence is slow, it's hard, it doesn't fit in a weekend workshop. But selling you confidence? That's a $300 seminar. That's a 10-step program. That's repeating affirmations in a mirror. And none of it makes you better at anything. It just makes you feel better about being bad at it. But here's the twist most people don't talk about. Confidence feels good. It reduces anxiety. It gives you clarity. It makes decisions easier. And your brain loves that. In neuroscience,
Uncertainty activates areas of the brain associated with stress and discomfort. Confidence does the opposite.
But here's the really uncomfortable part. Even after failure, overconfident people don't update. They find excuses, blame circumstances, convince themselves they were almost right. Because admitting you were confidently wrong means admitting confidence isn't enough. And the entire system, the books, the coaches, the culture, depends on you believing it is. So they'll keep selling you confidence, and you'll keep buying it. Until you realize the people who actually succeed aren't the ones who believed in themselves the most. They're the ones who questioned themselves enough to keep getting better. Confidence doesn't make you competent. Competence makes you confident. Get the order right.